Why does the old way of selling not work? So, what is the old method of sales? The old method of sales is features, and that's it. It is like you go to Best Buy, and the guy is like, "Hey, youngster, young whippersnapper, check out this TV. It's got HD. It's got the cleanest picture. It's got uh, it's got the highest economy where it's, I don't know, only costs you $1 per year. That's a new thing that they sell. It's all about features, right? It's all about, hey, come to my gym. The equipment is really nice. We have showers. We have beautiful bathrooms. It's our schedule is great. You're going to get the best workout of your life if you come here, right? That is selling features. Now, why does that not work anymore? I'll tell you. I'll give you an example of why that won't work. So, Joe, if you woke up tomorrow and you didn't have a job and you went to Orange Theory to get a job and you had to sell Orange Theory memberships, what are you going to tell them about Orange Theory?
I had to go I had to go to Orange Theory and sell it to just any like just
You got a job as Orange Theory salesperson.
okay. And I have to tell them about Orange Theory.
Yeah, why they should join Orange Theory? Because your livelihood depends on them joining Orange Theory.
Yeah. So I would tell them that it's going to get them the results that they want and it's the perfect fit for them.
It's the best workout they've ever done. It's the perfect fit. It's the most effective fat loss workout on the market. Right now, what would it look like if we were selling features only memberships to our clients? It's the best workout you're ever going to do. It's the most effective fat loss workout you're going to find. It's the solution to all of your problems, right? People in this day and age, with the advent of the internet, people have become very wise to the old method of selling, where they know that every salesman is just telling them what you want to hear to try to sell, right? Because they know if they go to any gym, every single trainer at every single gym is going to tell them, this is the best workout that you can possibly do. So they just became like immune to that. When you start selling them on features, they automatically are like, oh, here's a salesman, and you immediately lose trust. So to go off of what Jeff was saying, where it was like, hey, we are the solution to your problem. This is the best workout for you. I would not be as forward with this workout is the solution, because anything that comes off like that is going to deter people from buying, because they're going to be like, well, that's what Orange Theory told me. That's what F45 told me. So you must be just like them, right? Are you guys following that? And this is like a very new, if you read any like new sales or like, influence type person, this is like a really, really big point of topic because of the internet. People do so much of their own research that, have you guys ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? The Dunning-Kruger effect is this psychological phenomenon where the least you know about something, actually, the smaller the percentage of actual knowledge that you have, the more perceived knowledge you think you have. So somebody that read a Vanity Fair article about the best way to lose weight believes they know more about workouts than us. The more you learn about something, which is, I'm going to share just this graph with you guys. The more people learn, the more they realize they knew very little, right? So the less they know, the more they think they know. The more they know, they realize, oh, wow, I know absolutely nothing. We've all gone through this in every single area of our lives, right? Can you guys relate to having been through this yourself? I've been through it with nutrition. I've been through it with literally everything that I've learned, where I'll read an article. I'm like, oh shit, I'm really good at this stuff. And then I'll like buy 10 books on it and I'll be like, oh wow, I know absolutely nothing. And then eventually you actually do learn about it. But most of the people that we talk to are here. And if you try to sell them something that they believe they're an expert on that does not align perfectly with their level of knowledge, they are going to think you are an idiot. So why take the risk in trying to combat their perceived level of knowledge uh, that just isn't effective anymore. So the internet has propped people up to believe they know more than us about training. And that's why the new language of sales is collaborative, and it is like the anti-sales, right? So here's the bullet points of the new method of sales. The first one is curiosity. Okay. Asking really powerful questions and being genuinely curious about the person. People will like you the more they feel like you are interested in them. There's an old Dale Carnegie quote that says, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head now, but you'll make more friends by being interested in them than you will by trying to be interesting to them. Do you guys follow that? Cool. Uh, be humble and reflective. So there is a power dynamic in the sales conversation where the person that is being sold to uh, wants to feel like they are in charge. The second they feel like the power is shifted into your hands by you like talking at them, just trying to overload them with information, like really being pushy for the sale, the more they sense that they have lost power and the more they're going to push back. And this is the phenomenon of reactance. And it's when people feel that something is out of their control or they've lost power or autonomy, they will push back against it. You need to preserve their autonomy as much as you can. Now, the next thing is the new way of sales is collaboration versus coercion. Coercion is this is the best thing. You need to do this. I'm gonna save your life. Collaborative is, hey, I've got this gym. It sounds like you're really motivated. What do you think? I think I might be able to help you out. Can we work together on this? That is a powerful frame to be on because you are preserving their autonomy to make the decision for themselves. And the new way of sales is 100% about trust. And there are two sides to trust. The first side is that they trust you, and you do that by building rapport, by building relationships with people, and by getting them to believe in you. The other side is that they trust in themselves. Here's the thing with the old school power dynamic of I'm going to solve all of your problems. That strips power and trust in the individual. You're basically telling them that you're a loser. I'm going to fix all of your problems, right? That's like the deep subconscious thing that's the dynamic that's at play when you're like really pushy in sales on somebody. And I already told you, they're coming into this sales consult thinking that they know a hell of a lot about fitness and training and nutrition. So when you start saying, I'm the solution to your problem, I have all the answers, in their head, they're gonna be like, fuck you, I know a hell of a lot about this, right? How many nutrition consults have you been on where people have said, I know what to eat, right? I eat really, really well. Because they read 3 articles about what they should be eating in Women's Health magazine 6 years ago, and that's what they've been doing ever since. Right? You can't deny, I mean, it's so silly to say like perception is reality. They perceive themselves as really intelligent when it comes to their body and their nutrition and their fitness. It is insulting of us to assume that we are better than them, to them at least. You guys following that? Does that make sense? So your job in the sales consult is to get them to trust you as an individual, that you're not a salesman, that you are here to help them, but also to get them to trust in themselves that they can do this. They can invest a hell of a lot of money because you got their back. We're going to do this together. And they need to know that you need to build up their confidence. So you need to shift the power dynamic all to them by propping them up so that they almost buy as a way to be like, yeah, you know, I'll help you out. I'll buy your membership. Right. That's kind of like the switch. Like, I am pretty great. I am going to do really well. You know what? Let's do this. People want to be around other people that like hype them up. Your job in some way is to like be their little hype man and be like, oh shit, you're great. You know, this is awesome. I mean, I would love if you worked with me, you know? Um, and so that's the bullet points. Now I'm going to take it a little bit different. What questions do you guys have on old school sales versus new school sales? I'm going to go like a lot deeper in a minute here. Um, but I want to clean up another thing that I get asked a lot on this because it is a little confusing about how to approach it, which is the difference between marketing language and sales language, because these are could not be more opposite of approaches that you need to take. So, with what I've said so far, what questions do you have?
On the like in the discovery and the curiosity part, I know we've talked about it before, but especially when we're going for these like super high ticket things and you really want people to think you're so bought into them, what are like the most powerful questions up front that you can start with?
Good question. The most powerful questions, I think. So I'm gonna go into a little bit of that. So there's some really cool NLP tricks called there's this thing called the Milton model and the meta model. And it's essentially about helping people to dig deeper into their own thoughts and like making sure that they are incredibly clear because people are purposely vague when they communicate. It's not intentional. People, they call it deletion. They delete information just in our everyday lives. So when you start to pick up on patterns of what's called deletion or nominalization, like somebody says, I'm really busy, right? They're deleting a lot of information there. So you can ask another question that's like, well, what activities are filling up your time? Right. And it forces them to be like, well, I guess I don't know, I'm just unorganized. But like, well, what is causing you to be unorganized? So it's forcing them to mentally be like filling in their own gaps because the way most people think is a result of the like bombardment of information that we get every single day. Like when you really think about it that way we communicate, the way we think, the way we process information is very different than it was 100 years ago because every minute, I think it's every minute there's more information being created than there ever was in history before the year 2000. And our brains did not evolve to process all of that. Does that make sense? So all this information that is like constantly entering our eyeballs, it forces our brain to like consolidate and simplify everything just to like move through it. So when people communicate with vague language, it's not intentional. It's just the way we're used to communicating. But if you can stop them and ask them like more specific questions and get them to clarify things, that's the most powerful question answering that you can get. Right. So in NLP, one of the main like examples they give is when people they call it nominalize, when they nominalize an activity with a noun. So somebody says, I am depressed, right? That's what's called a nominalization because they are just dumping everything in their lives into this one word, depressed. And depressed is actually an action, right? Depressed is a verb. It's a thing that we are doing or it's an action that is occurring. So if you challenge that in a really kind way, and I'm using depressed just because that's what the NLP typical thing is, you would say, what actions are you doing that are depressing you? And they'd be like, well, I'm avoiding doing these activities or I'm not working out. Right. So you kind of like challenge them to change the word depressed from a verb, a thing that is happening to them, to a a noun into a verb that, hey, this is an action that is occurring and we can actually change the action to produce a different outcome. Did I just totally lose you guys? This is like this is the shit that I've been studying the last like 6 months. Um, so really the question is like pinpointing where people are not being super clear, asking them to be more clear and collecting like the really, really specific pieces of evidence that you can use to show them what we do is going to fix that problem. And if you don't ask those questions to get more specific, you are going to be shooting blind because they might be like, I want to get in better shape. Deep in the recesses of their brain, they have an image of weight loss as in shape. But if you don't ask, well, specifically, what does in shape mean to you? If you don't ask that and you start selling strength training or sleeping better or having more energy, you will not connect with them. Does that make sense? So I don't like to give like very specific questions. I think it's more just an understanding of the whole psychology of that communication thing. So any other questions? Cool. A lot of other answers are going to be answered through this next part. So there's two, sales and marketing should be treated with completely different approaches. Here's the approach with marketing. Marketing, your goal is to make the decision as easy as possible, right? We are the best. You're going to speak an incredibly confident and concrete language. We are the best solution. We're going to help you lose 54 pounds in the next 2 months. Like being incredibly specific, because specificity and certainty equates to authority. Okay. If you approach it like an expert, like I know you guys are, and somebody asks you what kind of results, and you start saying, well, it depends. It depends on how often you show up. It depends on what you're eating outside of here. That equates in their brains. They are perceiving that as this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, or he doesn't sound confident. This is like Donald Trump won the election because he spoke with absolute certainty, where anybody else with a brain, a normal size would speak in more nuanced language because the topics are so nuanced, right? I've used this reference, but like the solution to immigration from Clinton or Biden was, well, it depends. What if they come in this route? What about all these things? Yes, that is like logistically probably a really wise answer. But at the end of the day, people process, the more cognitive load, the more brain power it takes for them to figure it out in their heads, they conflate that with confusion and lack of authority. So in marketing, you need to speak with absolute certainty. We are the best. This is the only answer. If you do, and people take this to an extreme, which you got to find your own voice, but like some people will say, anybody that tells you otherwise is an idiot and we are the authority and blah, blah, blah. Right. And I'm sure you guys have seen examples of that, right? Vince, who's in the mastermind group, like if you read his emails, he speaks with absolute certainty. There is very little wishy-washiness. There's very little, I think this is the way it goes. This is the only solution. This is the best way to go about this. He knows that there's lots of options, but he also knows that his job is to get authority and attention. And that is your job in marketing. Speak with absolute certainty. The next one is being convincing and compelling. So how do you be compelling? You get stuff you put stuff out there that is easy on the eyes and easy on the brain. So things like alliteration. So if you have offers that are the super sweet sweepstakes or the summer shred challenge, right? Anything that rolls off the tongue and is almost aesthetically pleasing to the ears, which I don't know what the vocal or the auditory word of aesthetic would be, but you almost want to speak like poetically when you're writing. So anything that has alliteration is really powerful. Anything that uses novel language. So if you just look up like copywriting power words, I've sent you those documents in the past too. Sprinkle in words that people don't see very often, because that's going to spark novelty in people's minds and it's just going to pique curiosity. Your job is to get attention. Your job is to get eyeballs with marketing. Because again, there's so much information that our eyeballs process every single day that it has to be novel and attention getting, or else we just go blind to it. So with that, it could be using like emojis and subject lines, writing things in really unique ways in subject lines. I saw a really good example of what was it? I'll have to get it was the word fat, and they used some like the at symbol for A, and it was just like little things that you can do in your subject lines that like that looks weird. And there's a way to do it without it coming off as spammy, because you guys have seen those like junk emails where things are misspelled and stuff. So eye-catching headlines using novel language, power words, things that really capture your attention that they don't see very often. Okay. Um, so that is marketing language. You have to know it. You have to do it. If you write a marketing email that's like super vague or not like you are the authority, it just comes off as like not the best. And the last thing I'll say about marketing is brevity is power. The less you need to write, the more powerful the message is going to be. Every time you write a marketing message, whether it's a social media headline or an email, the less words that you use, the more powerful the message is going to be. So you want to review that and say, what words are not earning their spot in this email? Does that make sense? Every word needs to earn their spot in your email, and the job of every line is to earn the right to get people to read the next line. That is marketing language. It could not be more opposite in the sales role. And this is where a lot of people like have gotten confused because they'll see I'll share a marketing thing and they feel like they have to speak that way in sales, but that's not the way it should be. So in sales, the first thing is curiosity, like I talked about. You need to be genuinely curious. Okay. The more you ask about people, the more they talk about themselves, the more they're going to trust you. Because psychologically, they're going to say, I probably wouldn't divulge this much information if I didn't really trust this person. Because we share personal and intimate information about ourselves to people we trust. So therefore, I must trust this person if I'm sharing this information with them. And that is the power of asking really poignant and like really specific questions and identifying where they're being vague, asking to drill more with genuine curiosity so they give you the real underlying secrets. You guys following that? So asking really genuine curiosity questions. Your goal in the sales process, in marketing, it's to make the decision easy. In sales, is to make the decision theirs. The decision must be their decision. And that's just autonomy, like we talked about. So when I say like being genuinely curious, Katie, this was in here that I was planning on talking about, but like what questions you ask. So here's a bunch of examples. I'm going to actually copy and paste this into the chat. Here are some good examples of areas people are typically vague. So somebody might say, well, you know, I've just never been comfortable in the gym. And you might say, oh, well, what about the gym environment makes you uncomfortable? Right? Or what about the gym has made you feel that way? Right? Get them to be really specific. It could be the people. Well, I don't like male trainers. I don't like treadmills because I fell off one when I was a little kid, or I was embarrassed when I was younger. They will never tell you that unless you get really specific with your question asking. I hate working out. Well, what about what about your previous workouts have you disliked? And they might tell you that I fucking hate running on a treadmill because my knees hurt. You would never know to talk about the fact that we don't do treadmill training in the gym unless you ask that question. If we accept what they tell us at face value, never be good at sales because we're not answering the real question. Okay. I just want to be healthier. Like I said with Katie, like, what does that mean to you? Or what specifically would you like to improve in your health? And they might say fat, they might say energy, they might say joint pain. You've got to know that if you're going to move forward. I've tried other gyms before. What gym specifically have you tried? Because again, if you try to sell what you do without getting really specific, they're just going to lump you in with Planet Fitness, LA Fitness, and you've got to get really in tune. Last thing, I can't afford it, right? What specifically can't you afford, or what specifically is the thing that you're not seeing value in, right? So again, they might just not have processed exactly what we do. So that's a way to get like really, really curious and specific. And it has to start with an understanding that They don't do it intentionally, but they are not telling you the truth, meaning they're not telling you the whole story. So the next one is understanding when to be vague and when to be very concrete. So vague language in the sales can be really valuable when you don't get really, really specific information. And this is very similar to what I was just talking about. But if people don't give you specifics, then you want to make sure you use vague language because they have an image in their head of exactly what they want. They know exactly, people do not get on the phone or come to the gym without having an image in their head. If I see this or if this is there, I will sign up for this gym because that's what I want. They might not share that with you, but they have it. And if you sell them something that is not that thing in their head, it's not going to connect. It's not going to paint, you're not going to be looking at the same picture. So when should you be vague yourself? Is when they don't tell you the picture. You should switch your language to more of, well, we find most women, we can solve their fitness problems out with a 2 days a week membership, right? You would just sell like, we find we get people the best results when they come 3 days a week, right? You are remaining vague because they have not given you enough information to be precise. So it's knowing like when you get the real bit of information that you need to sell on. Are you guys following that? That one's kind of weird. And none of this is like, it takes practice and like, it's just something you want to learn and start like sprinkling in and keeping in the back of your mind. If it comes off too forced, it's going to be weird. So there was that. And the last one, like I said, is collaboration versus coercion. And here's the main points with that. Never, ever, ever, ever give information without asking permission. And this is the like most traditional form of talk therapy and counseling is what a lot of them use what's called motivational interviewing. And it is built on this aspect of people are more likely to change when they think it is their idea or when they think they have full control over their decisions. And that's why like the old stereotype of like therapy is like the guy sitting back in his chair, like, tell me more about that. And that's like the stereotype that people think about therapy. That is motivational interviewing because you're getting them to tell you more until they talk themselves into saying, yeah, I know I should just do that. Right. That's the stereotype because that's what a lot of it is. That's kind of exaggerated, but it's because it works. The more you tell people, what less likely they are to do it. So how do you collaborate in the sales consult? So always ask permission before you sell. If you don't ask permission, their defense mechanisms are going to come up. So, you go through, you build rapport, you learn what they want to get, and then you just dive into like, okay, so we're actually a personal training studio. We do, you're going to get really good results for 3 days a week. Without asking for permission before just like divulging and giving them all of that, they feel like you have stripped autonomy from them because they didn't want that information. They didn't ask for that specifically. So you always want to open the information stage or providing information by eliciting permission. And you would say, okay, cool. So you're looking to lose weight. Well, listen, do you mind if I share with you, what makes us a little bit different? Okay. The second they say yes, psychologically, they are now open to hearing the information where without granting permission to you, they would not be. And there's, obviously everyone's a little bit different, but this is kind of a general psychological rule. Always ask permission before giving information. And this is the framework, and this is like a language pattern called elicit, provide, elicit. And it is, well, do you mind if I share information with you? You give the information, hey, we're a small group training gym, we do X, Y, and Z. And then you elicit, are you following? Does that make sense? Right? Are you following that? Did I lose you anywhere? And that language pattern is really powerful with like moving people through the sale and closer to it. Because you're buffering like the sale with 2 bits of preserving of their autonomy. they are nodding their head throughout that language pattern because they're like, yes, you may sell me. They get the information. Yes, I am following. Yes, I am following. This all sounds great, right? You're creating like a nodding, they call it a yes set. So always ask permission and then ask if they're following. Does that make sense? Is there anything I need to clear up? I know it's a lot of information. What questions do you have? Okay. The next one is building them up. So again, they want to feel like they are in the driver's seat. They want to feel like the powerful person in that scenario. So build them up as much as possible. I'll give you a really good example. I listened to one of Alex sales calls and I sent him a voice message I guess that was last week. And the woman was like, yeah, I've already lost 50 pounds. And, I was just looking for something new and whatever. She just built herself up of like, she felt, she came off as like feeling really proud of that. And if you just like, okay, cool. So here's what we do, right? It's one, not acknowledging that, but also like, it's kind of evening the power gradient where you want to prop them up. So a better solution is, oh, wow, 50 pounds. Like that's really rare. You should be really proud of that. And be like, no, I am. It's amazing. Well, if you don't mind me asking, what were you doing to lose the weight? And she's like, well, I did Weight Watchers and I followed this whole in-home beach body plan. Again, she's bragging about what she did. You're building her up like, wow, well, that's awesome. If you don't like mind asking, why don't you just keep doing that if that works really well? Right? The power in asking that is for the sake of time, I won't ask you guys, but the power in asking that specific question is there's two ways you can respond to that. The first one is she tells you she lost 50 pounds, she's really proud, and you're asking, why don't you keep doing that? Her response is going to be searching for all the reasons she needs you. You are moving her thinking towards all the reasons that it stopped working, that she needs something different, or she got hurt or whatever. If you ask the other question, which is, oh, cool, so you want to work out with us? Her mind is going to be thinking, well, I did do really well myself, so I could just keep doing this, right? By pushing her to think about all the reasons she still reached out to us, even though she lost 50 pounds, even though she was super successful on her own, she's going to be reminded of all the things all the reasons and valuable reasons that she needs us. Did you guys follow that? What else did I have here? So the last one with like building them up with humility is not being the guy with all the answers, but just being the guy with all the experience. So instead of saying, I have the solution to your problem, offering them this. Well, listen, it sounds like you're really excited to work out. I don't know if this is going to work for you, but we work with a lot of women that are over 50, and I've had a lot of success with the twice a week membership and following our meal plans. Do you think you'd ever consider something like that? Right? That's going to get a much more positive reply and much more likely yes than, all right, our over 50 is you got to do 2 days a week training. You got to go on walks every day. You got to eat this meal plan, right? When you start saying that, people are going to be like, oh, that sounds like a lot. I don't know. And they're going to think about all the other things. But when you frame it in I don't know if this is going to work. Here's what I've seen a lot of success with. Would you want to try that? You're preserving their autonomy to make the decision for themselves and choose it for themselves. And that is how you take a collaborative approach to the sale. And the thing that I'll end with is the best sales conversations end with 3 words. And those words are you sure? Because if you can get them, and I think I haven't listened to every single one of Alex sales calls, but when we give a membership agreement to somebody and they don't sign it, I'm convinced that a lot of times it's because they hung up the phone and they think of things that didn't get answered. And so they change their mind, or they are like, oh, well, and they make up some story why it's not important to sign right now. But if you go through the sales consult and let's say, Alec, I'm selling a membership to him and he's like, you know what, this is great, sign me up. And I'd be like, oh, well, we didn't talk about schedule. So do you want to talk about that? And we're like, yeah, I looked at your website. It's 5:30 a.m. I can do that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? And I'd say, yeah, we do have a couple openings. So they're like, yeah, sign me up. I'm in. I want to lock in one of those spots. I wouldn't just say, great, here it is. I would say, okay, are you sure? And they'd be like, yeah, like, okay. Well, listen, here's typically what happens next. I'll send you the agreement and just select that, once a week membership option. Or like, you sure you covered everything? Or like, you get them to double down. The more times you can get them to like make that commitment phrase of like, yes, sign me up. Yes, I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure. The more they're digging their heels in and the more likely they are to sign up. If this end seems like it went really fast, I'm convinced you have less likelihood of them signing up because you might not have uncovered every little thing. Right. And I think Jeff's seen this. A lot of us have seen this. Like, the faster and easier and greater the call goes, the less likely they are to sign up. The more they just like, this is great. I love you guys. Sign me up right away. And you send them an agreement and they never do it. Right. You got to get them to like really, really, really commit and think longer about it. And that's how you collaborate, and makes you look a hell of a lot more trustworthy. If it looks like you're just trying to throw a membership agreement at them and get off the call as soon as possible, like it doesn't come off as trustworthy. The more you can have the courage to stay in the pocket and like almost push them to no and be like, are you sure? I know this is a big investment, but they're gonna be like, no, I need this. I know I need this. I really need to do this. The more likely they are to trust you more, trust that you have their best interests in mind, and sign up. So that was my thing. Uh, what what questions do you guys have? Joe.
Sorry, Joe.
I saw. No, I was just calling Joe for no reason. Jeff, what questions do you have?
I think a lot of this comes pretty naturally in the conversations where the person on the phone is very like open and open to questions and conversations. The calls that we get with people that are a little bit short, how do you, in your experiences, how do you kind of introduce this strategy to people that might be like short on the phone?
So there's so many different examples of this, but I'll give you one where it's when people are really, really short. I'm convinced a lot of times because they're expecting to be sold, and where they're just like kind of defensive. Sometimes they're just kind of an asshole and they just like don't want to talk. But I think you like give them valuable information that maybe they weren't expecting. So I think a lot of times people, when they're like, listen, just tell me the price, they're expecting you to run them through the ringer of like, well, let's get to that later. Like, let me just learn a little bit about you. And if you do that, immediately they're going to be like, see, I fucking told you, like, just another one of those guys that's going to sell me. I'm that way. I do a sales call with somebody, and if they start saying like, what's the value of how much would this be worth to you if we were able to fix this for you? I am immediately like, dude, I know what you're doing. Just tell me the fucking cost. Like, I'm going to sign up. If you keep doing this, I will not sign up. So I think if you give them the thing that they think you're going to hide from them and then follow up with a question, that's a good way to like, build a little bit of that trust. So like I talked to Alec about this early on. When people are like, listen, man, just tell me the price and how it works. You give them the price sheet and you say, hey, totally get it. Here's the price sheet. Obviously, it's gotta fit into your budget. Were you looking for a gym or a personal trainer? So you gave them a thing that I think they were defensive about, but then you keep it moving along with a very logical question. Hey, it sounds like you're really worried about price. So did you want a gym or a personal trainer? Are we on the same page here? And then they'll probably follow up a lot of times with, no, I did want personal training. I just, sometimes the price, and then you're like, all right, well, we are different. So I'm sure you have questions. Look over that. If you think $30 a session fits into your budget, I'd love to set up a call and actually explain how it works because it's different than you might be expecting. And we're like, yeah, okay, I think I can do that. Right. So again, that's one example. But again, sometimes you just deal with an asshole and it's all circumstance dependent, what they said on the lead up to the call, how you guys got connected. But if they really push for the one thing, the worst thing you can do is be like, yeah, we'll talk about that later. Let me just ask, how you found us. You want to just give it to them.